Welcome to Gazali. You know, the usual problem with most people is what to do in their life. There's a constant struggle, especially when you're 18-year-old. You don't know where to go, what to become. Somebody like me, I wanted to become everybody because I was mostly good at all subjects. So I wanted to become a doctor, engineer, everybody, except for a musician and a priest and a soldier. But I did do my medicine, and then I recovered very fast, and I'm pursuing my art. Today we have with us somebody who really found her love and is pursuing what she loves to do. We have Deepti Asthana. Deepti studied bioinformatics. She's an engineer in bioinformatics. Bioinformatics, by the way, is a science, is a multidisciplinary science of using apps and digital things to analyze biological data. Sometimes the data is so huge that it requires special applications. That's what she did. And then she thought she would go to America, do her post-graduation and become some big head of some pharmaceutical or something like this. But then she found her IT job. Within 1 year, she knew that this is not what she wants to do. And then the struggle began. What would I like to do? And I think she found the answers soon. Let us hear from her. Welcome, Deepti, to this show, Gazali. And tell us, how was this transition from a bioinformatics engineer to a photographer of great repute?
So I would say that it's very important to know that what do you not want. And then when you know that what do you not want, it starts to become clearer and clearer that what do you want. So for me, the realization that I don't want to be in an office job. I don't want to spend my time and my life sitting in an office in front of a computer. That's not what I want to do. So that became very clear. And then, of course, then you have to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? So there was a time in the year 2012, I was in London for a small stint in my IT job. And then I had a British colleague who was a hobby photographer, and he used to take beautiful landscape photos. And for me, it was very amazing. I'm like, oh, you don't really need any education for that. You can just get a camera, get a tripod and go out and take photos. How wonderful is that? And I joined him for a couple of trips, and he was kind enough to lend me his camera. But I was a very shy, timid girl. For me, going out with a camera in public and taking pictures, it's sort of like a very unthinkable thought. So like every beginner, I started to take photos of butterflies and flowers and all of that. So it started from there. But then I realized that I always had the passion of traveling. And for me, that camera became such a wonderful companion, you know, just to go out and travel with camera. And I just traveled everywhere possible in India, in the remotest place. I went to Spiti, I went to Leh Ladakh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, wherever, whenever I get any vacation, any leaves, I would just go and travel. And I realized that I love taking photos of people. That is something which is so clear to me, that I love nature, I love wildlife, but it is photographing people which I really enjoy.
Why do you love photographing people?
To understand people, to have that moment of a connection with people, that you want to know about them. I have always been curious to know about life in general and how people lead different kind of life, and it's a way for me to find my own answers. There was an inner struggle for me about my life and my past. So for me, it's like I'm not able to find answers sitting back at my home. I need to go out and find answers.
Okay, by the way, I didn't introduce you very properly right at the beginning. Deepti is a National Geographic photographer. She has won the World Press Photo Award. And I think that you click pictures of people, and I have a feeling that you do that because you empathize with them. You want to know their life. You use photography as a medium to connect with people. When did you get your first break as a photographer?
Yeah, so I was traveling a lot. I was doing travel photos, but the travel photo did not seem to take me further in my quest to know people's life, to understand people's life. And then I discovered something.
You mentioned last time the travel photo, you used to travel, stay in very good hotels, very comfortable. And you really mentioned something that to be very comfortable is not very conducive to great art.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've never been that kind of traveler that I go to a 5-star hotel and live in a comfy space and then eat in fancy restaurants and come back. For me, that's a loss. That's a huge loss that you go to a new country, you go to a new state and you don't get to see anything in that deeper sense. You don't get to meet people, you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the art of the state. So for me it's like, no, I don't want to be that kind of traveler. I have never been that kind of traveler. So I again have to make that judgment and opt out that travel vlogging is not for me. So you're always like striking options off your list that this is what I don't.
So you were not interested in traveling, staying in big hotels and promoting the hotels and promoting the place.
No, that's...
You wanted to find something else.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing which gave you that break?
Yeah, so I was feeling a little stuck in my corporate job and I started to travel to Himalayas, and there I found 2 teenager girls and we became...
I think before that you talked about the Vidarbha, this farmers suicide.
Yes, so these things were happening a lot in parallel. At one side I wanted to find an escape. I started to travel to Uttarakhand and doing these stories of teenager girls. Other side, I was in Mumbai and there was a constant news of farmer suicide coming every day in the newspaper, and it was very disturbing that every day you get to hear that there's so many people committing suicide. And Vidarbha is not far from Mumbai, it's 600 odd kilometers. So for me it was very impulsive that I just wanted to go there. I don't know how.
You were already in a corporate job.
I was in corporate job, and for me it's like I want to go there, I want to do something, and I don't know how. I just had this feeling that I have to go there. So I randomly found some contact on Google, this NGO who was in Vidarbha, and I called that person. I'm like, I want to come and do this story, can I come? And it's a wonderful couple who has been working with farmer for almost 30 odd years, and they invited me to their home and I lived with them. I lived with the women who have lost their husbands. So for me, I want to try to capture that angle, that when the men who are not able to take the pressure and committing suicide, what's happening with their wives or children. Now who is taking care of all that? So I started doing, I did that story, and it was emotionally very difficult for me to go there and live with the women in the same room where their husbands have committed suicide. And so I came back and then I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? So I wrote an article and I pitched that thing to Al Jazeera English newspaper. It's based in Dubai, and they accepted it. And I was very surprised because they never came back saying, oh, do you have a degree in photojournalism, or have you ever published anything before, like what's your track record? They just like the article, they like the work, and they published it. And I was very happy that, okay, whatever I'm doing very intuitively, it's working out for me. And similarly, I was traveling in Himalayas. For me, it was just an escape because I was living in a very concrete city. I have always loved mountains. So I made several trips to Himalaya, and then I was working with the stories of 2 teenager girls. And it's a very simple story. It's just about teenage. It's just about finding connection with the nature, especially when your life is little difficult. So for me, it's just I kept on going there, and I sort of
So you followed these girls for 5 years?
Yes, yes. For me, it was a very interesting
Every summer
time.
vacation.
Every summer vacation. When I met them, they were 10-year-old and very childlike, very free. And by the end of the project, they were almost turning 15, 16, and now becoming more conscious, a little more like, behaving like adult. So the transition was like really beautiful. The only thing which sort of made me go back and stay connected with them is when we are out in nature, we all are children. I'm a child again, they are child again. We are going and sometimes climbing on rocks, sometimes going for the waterfalls, finding new things every day. It just became a beautiful, nice friendship in a way. And for me, that's escape. For them, it's escape. It was like a perfect way for me to photograph. So I was not following that, oh, what documentary photography is and how should you do it. I just did whatever I feel like doing.
Foundation of your photography is empathy.
Yeah, it's a connection. It's a way to
Connect with their lives.
Connect with their
feel
lives.
their
Connect
joy.
with my own life. Connect with myself. Because sometimes we are rushing so much in our lives, in our job, in the pressure of being productive all the time. That does not give us any space to think about where I'm going. And if you're not questioning that, you will never tend to change your path. You just keep on following what everyone else is following, what everyone else is doing, because no one is questioning that. No one sort of like has that time and capacity to question it. And once you question it, then the quest start. That okay, now I have questioned it, and now where do I go from there?
So this project with the two girls, so they did it for 5 years, and what happened to that project? It was published?
Yes, it was actually funded by this organization called Focus Scotland. At that time, they were giving grant to 3 Indian artists and 3 artists from Scotland, and everyone was supposed to work further. But this project has been published to multiple places, multiple magazines. Even very recently also I keep on getting requests for it to be published again. I think the essence of the photos in the project is that it's done with a lot of curiosity. There's an element of mystery in the photographs. So it's still I would say the lot of requests I get for the exhibition and publication is of that project.
I will deviate from the subject a little bit because we forgot to talk about your father, because you started your presentation at Museum of Goa with a picture of your father and a poem you wrote about him. Please talk to us about your father.
So there was a time recently, especially during pandemic, I had a lot of these uncomfortable questions about myself. That who am I? Those bigger questions, and I realized that you can never understand about yourself until unless you understand as much about your parents. And for me, okay, my mother is there and I think I know her well, but I lost my father at a very young age. I was 4 and I really didn't have any memory of him except him, the last memory of him when he actually, he was dead at that time, and he came in a truck, his dead body arrived in a truck after 5 days of his death, on a huge slab of ice. And that's a very difficult memory for a child to have of your father. And then I, of course, when I talk to other people, they will always tell their version of his, what kind of person he is and all of that. And then I just saw his photo, one particular frame. Wherever we lived, the frame was hanging everywhere. And I look at that frame and I'm like, how do I perceive this? This is a person who is supposed to be my father. And if he was alive, my life would have been very, very different, completely different. So I end up writing something, because sometimes photography does not feel enough. So I end up writing these lines. I'll read it for you. I saw you from the corner of my eyes, sometimes in the family album, mostly hanging on the wall. I saw you in broken mirrors while searching for my own soul. But do I even know you? You are just a stranger on the wall. Did we ever play in parks? Did you ever hold my hand? They whispered stories about you. They said, you loved me best among all. A tear dropped on the cheek without even knowing what I lost. You're just a stranger on the wall. Yeah, so I wrote these lines, and then for me, it's like I want to go to the places where he lived. So, majorly, interesting enough that he lived majorly his life in Uttarakhand as a civil engineer. So, he constructed schools, he constructed colleges, and for me, it was very weird and interesting to go and see that this is the place which my father built. You know, to just to go and stand on the same ground where he might have stood at one point of time, to probably not breathe the same air but the same atmosphere where he must have been alive. So it's a quest to know
And
knowing
then there was
him.
this phone call from a friend of his.
Yeah, that was very interesting in a way that I found a photo of him, and in the photo, my father might have had that habit that he wrote the name of his friend, and interestingly enough, that the friend. And then they were playing this sport at that time. Interesting enough that the friend, he is a famous person. He is chairman of Golf Club of India, and I found him on Facebook. It was easy to find him on Facebook, and I was chatting with him. I'm like, I found this photo of you, and he's like, oh, so wonderful. I'm like, the person next to you is my father. I am his daughter. Like, oh, so nice. And can you give me his number? I have not been in contact with him for so long. And in today's digital world, it's so easy to connect with people and all of that. But at that time, he didn't remain in touch with his very, very good friend.
He didn't know that
say.
he had died.
He didn't know that. And after 30 years, he is asking me his contact number. So I had to tell him that, and it was so weird to tell him that he passed away some 30 odd years ago. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another project which you did, which is a little bit connected with Goa, because Serendipity Art Festival happens here.
Yeah.
And one of the curators, Dinesh Khanna, he saw your work and offered you a project.
Yeah. Right. So it's something like I visited Dhanushkodi, and then I had some photos, and I sent him some of the work, and he was at that time.
You must tell them, the audience, where is Dhanushkodi?
Yeah, I was. So Dhanushkodi is a region which is further to Rameshwaram in Tamil Nadu, and it's a long strip of just a road, and there are some 400 odd families who are living on the both sides of the road. And this particular strip, it's the sea both the sides. There's Indian Ocean, there's Arabian Sea, so it's just some earth existing between two seas. So geographically, it's a very interesting area. And as an inquisitive traveler, I went there, I photographed something, and I came back and I sent some work to him, and somehow he remembered that. After I think a year or something, he had this opportunity to curate an exhibition. So the concept was that they are going to give grants to 6 different artists, women artists, and they will go and create work wherever they want to do. So it became a very obvious choice for me that, okay, let me get that grant. And yeah, they were kind enough to give me that grant, and I'm like, okay, I want to go back to Dhanushkodi, because it's a place that you want to go back again and again, So I went back, and there was a particular theme also. The theme was to find extraordinary people in an ordinary place. So for
That's
me,
very nicely put.
Yeah.
Extraordinary people in an ordinary place.
In an ordinary place, because if people look at it, they'll say, oh, it's an ordinary place. But if you have those eyes, it's a very special place. And then I found a few very special people, like really inspiring people. And I think there has been a constant theme, I would say, in my life when I had to do things which wanted me to have more courage. It is always, I've seen people who have shown exceptional courage, and from that understanding, I'm like, when people can do it, I can do that too, you know. So I met some amazing people there. One of the fishermen I was talking to you about, his name is Karadi, and he
Karadi is a bear.
Bear. It's a
Bear man.
Bear man, and that's not actually his real name. He got this name because he lost his arm and both the eyes in a particular fishing method, which is called blasting method. And what you do is basically you throw a bomb on the in sea wherever you see a group of fishes, and the fish die and you catch, and they get a shock and you catch it easily. So that was a very harmful and dangerous fishing method, and now it's banned. It's not there anymore. But because of that, he lost his arm and both the eyes. But this guy, he continued fishing. He continued going in the sea. I mean, this whole act of going in the sea with the bare minimum technology and just a sense of direction, that itself is a very courageous task. I absolutely salute fishermen for that kind of showing that kind of courage, that they just go with that faith that we will go.
How many years ago did he lose eyes?
It was I think in the year I'm not very sure about it. I think it was in 2005 or something.
Okay.
It was in 2004, 2005.
So all this years is fishing.
Yeah, and he's fishing, and he is probably the most energetic person. He is the one who would be singing loudest, laughing loudest, and then he would also be like, shall I show you that how I swim with one arm? And he's just jumped in the middle of sea, and you know, he swam across the sea. That was just so wonderful to see. And then similarly, I met more such people there. I met 2 women who have been abandoned by their husbands, and then, you know, suddenly they're like, okay, now we have to take care of the family, we have to take care of children. So they were doing the main forefront job of fishing. Not many women do it, you know. In the fishing community, it's usually men's job to, you know, go and spread the net and all of that. So they were doing it. Another girl I found, like a very wonderful young girl, and she was the only girl and the first girl in the village who completed her education till class 12th. So she was given this laptop by the government. Unfortunately, there is no electricity to charge it. You know, so for me, my job was to meet these people, and the funny thing is, it didn't take enough time for me to find these characters. They were just appearing.
We have very little time, so I think your story of this girl who finished at 12th standard and who is now about to get married to a man who has not studied anything.
Yes.
And that's because all your work has a gender base.
True.
You are working with women.
True.
In your photography.
True.
That's one of your agendas. So
Right.
please tell us about this girl.
Yeah, so you know, I was so happy to meet her, that there's this person who's so ambitious and hopeful about her future, and we started to talk and spend more time, and then suddenly she started to cry. I'm like, why are you crying? It's like, I want to go to college, but I cannot because I'm already engaged, and my future husband, he doesn't want me to go to college. And then I inquired more, and then I realized that person doesn't have the job. He's still, you know, trying to find out what to do and all of that. But he has that power to decide the future of this girl. And the family is like, we cannot do anything. He would be deciding. So that is something which is a very common thing when I'm working in rural India. That's a very repetitive pattern. And I grew up in a very patriarchal state in Uttar Pradesh. All of these things I have seen around me all the time. All the time with my friends. When I was in school in class 12, my friends were getting married. And that's the actual fear I have. I had this actual fear, if I'm not going to study enough or study hard, there's a possibility that I might also get married in class 12th. You know, so when you grow up with this kind of environment, it's very normal, I think, to have this kind of inclination, if you call it feminism or you call it, the more empathy towards a particular gender, because things are very unfair.
I think you're using your photography as a real powerful tool to bring out these issues. I think the last project you could talk about now is, what is your future project? You are doing something with women and water.
Yes, so that's a project I'm working at the moment. It's a project which is called The Weight of the Water.
The weight of the water.
The Weight of the Water.
You're very good at giving names. The 1,000 pounds, the weight of the water. Yeah.
Yeah, I think title is important. That's the first thing which captures the audience. So for me, it's like, who is lifting this weight? This requirement of providing water, especially in the mountains where the terrain is so difficult. And if you happen to go in that region in Uttarakhand, most of the region actually now, then there's a absolute crisis of water there. And when people think of Uttarakhand, they don't think about water crisis. People think about Rajasthan, they think about Maharashtra, they think about MP, but no one thinks that a region like Uttarakhand, which has 16 rivers.
You should also do this in Goa, because in Goa, in spite of 120 inches of rain, we have water scarcity.
Yeah.
In the heavy rain outside, and a tanker comes to supply water to my museum. I think this requires excellence in mismanagement of water, which our government seems to be having.
No,
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's the story now everywhere. It takes time for people to recognize that, because some regions people know it's a drought prone region, but a region like Uttarakhand where you have 16 rivers, people don't imagine that. But water crisis in that region is a much bigger issue, because you have to go up and down in the mountains, find the natural springs to fill the water, and that responsibility only comes to women and young girls.
Thank you for joining us. It was wonderful talking to Deepti Asthana. She really uses photography to empathize with people, to highlight issues, especially connected with women. And I really wish she comes to Goa and also takes up some of the issues, including our water scarcity here, and also perhaps the big issue which is facing us right now connected with water, which is the Madhi issue, the river issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really hope so too.